positive vibes. When you can't see the sunshine, be the sunshine. This one is something that, believe it or not, as positive and happy as I am in this channel, right? When I describe myself as melancholic, is one that I have begun to practice about a year ago or a year and a half ago. How do I put this? It was kind of a moment of realization that I have the potential to do this more than expecting for someone else to be this role, considering that it may be better suited for them. Say, I'm not the person who has a ton of friends. I'm not the person who's chatty. I'm not the person who is a people person. I always expected that someone else, the person who's more out there, more extroverted, has more friends and stuff, they could be the sunshine. But then something happened to where I started becoming a supportive person for other people who should have been in this role. And it's not like I was surprised, because I have always known that some of the people who shine brightest are some of the people suffering the most, or some of the diamonds we know in our society were the ones who were made under pressure. The fact that someone like me could signify someone supportive to someone else meant a lot, because it's a role that I had, in a sense, given up from since I left school. Back in middle school, for instance, I remember when I was a peer mediator. When I was a peer mediator, that was a big moment for me, because I looked at it as, okay, not only have I been selected to do this because some of my classmates legit found that when I would talk to them with advice, it worked to help them, but even my guidance counselors and my teachers were backing up such a nomination. And then I said, okay, I'm starting to embody that characteristics that I possess, which is I'm not too out there, but when I am out there, I feel like I deploy myself adequately. But then after high school, because high school is a bigger society, I wanted to be more in the shadows. I found that I was happy being on the sidelines more than anything. And now as an adult, I've become a little bit of a blend. In the beginning, I was absolutely maintaining my distance, but in more recent times, I've been selectively putting myself more out there. And I'm glad I have, because once again, it takes me back to my school days, where my management is telling me that I should be more out there and sharing more of what I know. And when I recognize that I have the power to do something, to just go ahead and do it. And then I tell myself, well, I just don't like to just act it out. I like for someone to ask of me that intervention, because who's to say that this person doesn't want to be helped? I don't want to just intrude in there. And then another element to consider is that sometimes some people don't realize that is the kind of help that they could have requested, or that they even needed it. Sometimes it's difficult to identify that position. And I can see it from both ways now. Now, what I do is I try to act based on how I feel at the moment, at the time. And if I score it, fine. It was a good score. But if I don't, then I'm also okay with it, because sometimes just because I didn't score something immediately, it doesn't mean that I didn't have an effect, I didn't have an impact. In some, that is the way I know how to be sunshine. That is the way I know how to be bright in someone's day. It's I will be tactful about where I'm at and when, what it is that I'm doing or saying for somebody. And that is something that I definitely can credit my mom, because mom always explained to me situations in which I should feel invited to do something, to say something, and the other times when it's simply not my stage. And I feel like because of that, I was able to discover that I see the point now of not being involved. I feel like it's more fun and better to be looking at things from the outside because I get the whole perspective. I can see what's happening between two folks, but also what's happening around them. Whereas amongst the two folks, they only know what's happening within themselves, but they don't see what's happening around them because their vantage point is not as good as mine. And then when it comes to being sunshine overall, I'm not exactly the most loving and sweet person out there. And sometimes I'm selective about when I am and when I'm not because, again, I like to establish boundaries. But I do know and understand that I do have that charisma. I do have what it takes to be that sunshine. I have been described as the sunshine before. I have been described as having a sunny personality, which was the weirdest thing ever considering how gloomy I am all the time. But I didn't completely shoot that down because I do remember there was a time when I was more exultant. I remember genuine joyful times, and they were mostly as a kid because you're in that bliss, you're a little aloof about things. But what made some of my childhood happy is that I was just being a kid like I'm supposed to be. But the other times that made my childhood not as happy is when the more serious things were involved, such as the issues between my parents, the issues with my brother, and at least I feel like I had a pretty good, how can I describe this? Anesthesia to get through that, which would be in the form of entertainment. Like by that time, we had a degree of handheld devices, so I could just turn one of those on, get lost in my little world, and I saw that I was making memories with a device and the world around me was happening, but I wasn't really aware of it. And I think that's how I retained most of my peace. But that also meant that I wasn't really involved out there. But also because I was developing the skill of fixating my gaze and attention onto something, I guess that is why I'm a good observer because now I'm able to, no matter how boring something is or someone is, I can be attentive. It doesn't matter how long of an introduction they have. I'm not sitting there in the comment section going like, it's taking forever for her to get to that point. Because I understand that someone taking forever with an introduction is you are getting to know them as the person and you're getting to know how this concept developed. But some people just want you to go straight into a point. And I look at that as attention deficit, honestly. I think I have attention surplus. People like that, they to me give me the vibe that you are impatient and that is an attitudinal problem on your part more than mine because I have never rolled my eyes or complained that a teacher is taking too long before getting to the meat of something. I appreciate the intro, the beginning, the climax, the conclusion. But some people want to get straight to the climax without the build up to it. And that's when you miss out on some things that down the line I'll hear you saying, I didn't know. So, anyway, when it comes to being a sunny person, don't force it. If it's not in you to be a sunny person, just don't be the fucking sunny person. It's not you. But if you are tactful about it, if you know what you're doing, if you know who you are, if you know what you are, if you know what your resources are, what your power is, then for sure you can serve as the sunshine. And I have been that person who gets told that when I walk into the room, even if I retreat into my little corner, that there's something about me. I have this glow to me. I'm glad that doesn't happen as often nowadays because I'm certainly not looking for that kind of attention. But the moment I started hearing those things, I understood what my personality is and how to embrace it, even if it's quietly. I don't need to be acting that personality every day because it's not what I am. I want people to get used to the fact that I'm just as human as they are. I have bad days, I have good days, I have very bad days, I have very good days, and I have severely painful bad days. But just because I go through those emotions, it doesn't mean that you cannot count on me like you're used to. Like, even if I'm upset, even if I'm mad, you wouldn't find out about it, probably. Maybe you'll notice it on my face a little bit if you know me well, because, like I've said before, I don't hide my emotions. But if you don't pick up on it on my face, maybe on my voice, it'll come out somewhere. But like I've said before, I feel happiest when I'm being authentic. And I think that we all should be held accountable when we do something wrong, but we shouldn't be condemned for our outward appearance or sound. Just leave us alone. And you'll notice that even those people who are suffering, when they're willing to still accommodate you, to me, that speaks volumes. And I've known people like that, people who I know are suffering and are going through a rough time, but somehow they still can provide support for you when you need it. And even when you don't realize you need it, they're still supporting you. And maybe you don't notice it until days or weeks after. Well, there you guys have it. That's it from me on this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know how you feel about this one. This is an interesting one because I feel like at some point we have all been the sunshine in someone's life, even if we haven't been told. And I think that if you're someone who you can tell that you are that person who like brightens up a place, lightens up the room when you walk in, then what do you do? Do you completely embrace it or do you not make it a big deal? I don't make it a big deal because I don't need it to be a big deal. But I do understand that is power and I just want to be responsible and careful with it. Okay, that's it. Bye.